Welcome to this briefing from ProSpare. ProSpare is a family-run business based in Nottinghamshire that helps companies handling powders, granular materials and bulk raw materials to improve their manufacturing processes. ProSpare sources innovative components and spare parts from world-leading material handling equipment specialists that improve productivity, health and safety, hygiene levels and reduce maintenance requirements. Since 2007, they've been the sole UK distributor for BFM fitting, one of the first appointed in Europe. BFM Fitting is a global leader in flexible connection technology. The distinct snap-in, flexible connector and spigot system eliminates the problems associated with traditional hose clamp connectors. Well, today we're discussing all of that with Joe Cossey, the General Manager at ProSpare. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us, Joe. Interesting one, this. I was looking at the background before, obviously, this call. Very interesting piece of technology, and I think a lot of people that maybe are watching this, particularly process managers who may be building plant and maybe looking for a way to maybe influence how they are looking at efficiency, particularly safety and also health as well, is an interesting aspect to this. This one could be a game changer, it seems to me. It could actually be transformative. So could you give us a little bit of background maybe on your relationship obviously with the company itself and also the actual fitting?
Yeah, brilliant, of course. So a little bit sort of context really. So we are ProSpare, we're the UK distributor for the BFM fittings. In its sort of early infancy, it's been in the market now for a good sort of 16, 17 years.
Indeed.
It's great the way that you've picked up. The simplicity of it is often what's commented by the people that we show it to. I've turned up at reception once with it in my hand and a factory manager sort of came out and said, "Who are you?" And I just said, "Look, I don't want much of your time, but I've got this. Can I show you?" And he snatched out my hand, popped it in and out and said, "Oh, that's genius." Those that work in those sort of engineering-y, mechanical sort of roles, they absolutely understand and see the simplicity of it.
Absolutely.
And I think the next question they ask is, why have I spent so many years doing up Jubilee clips? The beauty of it is there's not a lot that can go wrong.
Absolutely. I think every sort of process manager is looking for that to reduce complexity. But let's talk about the waste reduction first and sustainability. How those can be really overhauled if you go with this technology.
There's a few strands of it. There's three sort of strap lines: easier, safer, and cleaner. So if we look at, I suppose, the easier part of it, which relates to ease of changeover, these connectors, you're looking really 20 seconds, you can take them in and out. You compare that to somebody having to go and fetch a screwdriver, undo a Jubilee clip at the bottom, undo a Jubilee clip at the top, potentially cut their other sleeve to the right length to reinstall it. Yeah. It's a saving of time, but equally when it comes to taking our system out and putting the new one in, it's very hard to install it wrong. If you install it wrong, you can see quite visually that it's very much wrong. So what that means is you can actually train your operators, those that are on the factory floor, to change these.
That occurred to me when I was reading the briefing notes for this one. It seems to me there's a couple of things there, isn't there? I mean, every plant, obviously, downtime is a nightmare. Absolutely, it's one of those things, particularly when you're switching maybe plant to run different batch jobs. Then, downtime, obviously minimising that is absolutely important.
And, it's often the way of things and the way of the world. A lot of people they're getting by with what they're doing. It serves a purpose. They can keep things predominantly running. But it's often when something goes very wrong that then questions are asked and people will say, what happened here? Why did this happen?
Why you failed?
And often it's those sorts of things that people, through looking in solutions, may come across us and come across the BFM fitting.
I think a lot of this is also about what's next for us. I speak to a lot of process managers and say, well, we have a process, it works, so don't fix it. Yeah, that kind of attitude. It works, let's leave it alone. But of course, you're going to have to evolve at some point. I think a lot of plant is quite old now, and do you often have that conversation early on? Because you guys would like to go in at the design stage.
That's a big part of what we do. To be fair, we've got people that are based on the roads. We'll go and talk to customers about their existing setup. We'll measure and look at what they do, and we'll make recommendations in terms of what adjustments are required to retrofit this system into their plant, into their process.
Yep.
I mean, another thing we do, which is more of an ethos of the company. So our sort of strap line is make it better. We will go in and we will identify like what their failure mode is, what's going wrong with your existing setup. And it may be that our product is, part of the solution, but not the whole solution in terms of if they've got product flowing and it's coming in at an angle and it's always going to hit the same point, we'll say, look, when you do the modifications, put a bit of flow correction in so that product doesn't always hit the same bit of connector.
Well, absolutely, yes. Now, I believe, Joe, you can actually show us the product in reality. I believe you can lift one into screen for us.
I can.
And kind of talk us through exactly how this thing works in practice.
This is what we're talking about fundamentally. So this is our BFM sleeve, and this bit here is what we call the spigot. So this will be attached to your pipework or your machinery in the factory. And as you'll see, the sleeve sits inside the spigot. So with a normal connector, you'd have a sleeve going over the top of the pipework and then a Jubilee clip.
Indeed.
So that bit there, that internal seal, that's the clever bit. That's the really smart bit of technology. And what it means is when instead of using the Jubilee clips over the top of pipework, where you inherently get products start to build up on the top of it, and you start to get leakage where it starts to go loose. This system, because it sits flush and it sits internally, it's nice and easy to do. So you've got your sleeve sat inside your spigot. You compress the sleeve to take it out, and it's got a band in there that reshapes it. And then you put it back in, you would have heard that snap. That means that your sleeve is sat in and it's a perfect fit.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Like I said, very hard to get it wrong. If you try and install it wrong, you put it in too far, it won't sit in. So that gives confidence, that it can be changed on the factory floor by people that are obviously showing the process in doing so. So yeah, that's the beauty of it. Very simple. You'll have this spigot on the bottom. You'll also have a spigot on the top as well. And that sleeve sits in between the two.
That's superb. So it is absolutely a simple but massively effective solution. I think you said at the beginning, of course, also when it comes to replacing these, absolutely. You can look at a process and go, you're going to need this amount of inventory on site, and again, huge amounts of efficiency there for the larger, plants. These could be an absolute godsend. You could have thousands of these, literally across a plant.
To use, your analogy, you could have a plant with 1,000 connectors. And what we see at the moment when we talk to a sort of customers is they will have they'll have connectors all different lengths and they're all bespoke. So they need to be made bespoke, which makes them on longer lead times. Holding stock, keeping it on the shelf. You've got the right parts in for the right lines. Going back to what we said earlier about when we advise on installation, we talk about standardization. So if your current gaps between your pipework's that all the way along, let's sort that out. Let's make sure every gap's like that. And then you can have, 4 sleeves in there that are all the same, and you can keep 2 on the shelf, and if any of those go, you can just swap them in, swap them out. You don't have to cut it. You don't have to think about, does that one go there? Is that too long? It keeps it simple.
How do you think this technology is going to move forward? Is it a case that again, it's a simple technology, absolutely works? What do you think's next? Are you looking at sensor technology, that kind of thing?
So there's a couple of parts. I mean, the technology itself, like I say, it's quite humble. It's made up of two parts: is a sleeve and a spigot. There are adaptations that can be made to the spigot that give some sort of feedback and some reading. So there's a system at the moment. It's called the pneumatic monitoring system. So the idea is that you've got an airline attached to your spigot, and you're trying to sort of push air in ultimately. And the point is, when your sleeve is sat and it's in situ, it won't allow that air to be pushed in. But if that sleeve is removed, it gives feedback. The air pressure drops, and therefore you get feedback to your system to say, okay, that sleeve has been removed. I mean, the other part to it is the durability of the material itself. A lot of what we see quite flimsy materials. We see a lot of rubber being used, sort of natural rubber, and it has, it has its merit. It has stretch. It has some good properties. However, it is also susceptible to sort of exposure to the atmosphere. Starts to deteriorate it. And I'm sure we've all seen, a very old rubber seal on a car. It starts to break up, starts to fall to bits. And not really what you want. You don't want to be questioning, is that breaking up and falling into my production line? So
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not on.
No,
it's really not on. Another aspect I think is very important to cover, Joe. I guess it has three elements really. I think we touched on hygiene a little bit, but I'm also interested in how the fitting also helps managers to look at, I guess, compliance. We're talking risk management here in certain aspects. Certain process can be quite high risk.
Yeah.
I think the risk management itself is an interesting one. How do you guys approach that, and how does the fitting, I guess, alleviate a lot of that? The hygiene aspect, certainly compliance, and very much so when it comes to risk management. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a great point. So ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep your product in the process. That's what we talk about.
Don't want any leaks.
No, exactly. No. Nobody wants that. The bit that we've not really touched upon, which I think is important, is actually taking into consideration the people that work in those environments every day. They're there, whatever factory shifts they work, but it can be a long shift in a potentially dusty environment. And we go to sites and we see people that have got all sorts of PPE and dust masks and hoods and various bits like that.
Indeed.
So one way that the BFM helps is if you help to eradicate those leakages, it vastly reduces the amount of that dust that's in the atmosphere, in the environment.
Yeah.
There is a sort of a regulation that's spoken about. It's called ATEX, so it's about explosive environments. So our sleeves themselves, they've been sort of tested and proven to be able to use in these explosive environments. That's another benefit of this sleeve, that they're rated. They're able to help dissipate that static build-up. There's two big ticks there, really. It's about operator exposure and it's about the ability of the material itself to lessen the risk in that area.
Well, we've come to the end of this fascinating briefing. I'd like to thank Joel for speaking to us today. To learn more about how your business can take advantage of the BFM fitting, do reach out to ProSpare at prospare.co.uk. Till the next time, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Joe.
Thanks, David.